since I died in 1929. When the Historical Society says, will you come up and say a few words, I always try to accommodate them. And, but it's getting harder and harder. But my mother, who's buried here, Mary, came to Smithville. Our town was established in 1792, and the original name for the town was Smithville. It was named for Benjamin Smith, who was very active in getting the town started around this old colonial fort here called Fort Johnston. And he wanted the town named after him, so they said, okay, it's Smithville. And so that was what it was until a long time later, and if I don't lose my train of thought, I'm going to tell you what happened to change that. If I forget, somebody ask me. Anyway, Mary came to town. This was like 1840, 1839, 1840. Her husband, Joseph Benzel, had died and left her with these 5 children, 1 boy and 4 girls. In fact, I think my half-brother, Joseph Benzel, has come up from his place over there. And you might hear what he's got to say about living here. Anyway, Mary started this inn because there was nothing like that around here, and there needed to be because at that time Smithville in 1840 was the county seat for Brunswick County. And Brunswick County is a big county. In fact, some other counties have chipped off from Brunswick County over the years. And so we were the county seat here in Smithville for 178 years. The county courthouse was here, all of the county business records, everything that had to do with county business went on here in Smithville South. She built that inn, and of course it was right on the water, so the boats would come right up to it, and boats that were coming down up and down the river from Wilmington. You could pull right up in front of the boarding house, and so she really got a good business going there. So when she married the doctor from Fort Johnston, Henry Stuart, a Scotsman, I was born in 1844 in the boarding house there. And I died 85 years later in that boarding house. I only left this town very few times. Once, the longest time I was ever away from here was the 2 years I was at the Glen Ann Female Academy in Thomasville, North Carolina, for my education. And then I came right back here and, of course, started working with my mother again in the boarding house. But I do want you to know that I helped to start a school here, and we had almost 100 students. A friend of mine here in town, and I started that school because at that time there were no public schools, and these were, of course, private schools that we started. But that's a whole nother story. By the way, you can read a lot about me and find out a lot about me through the Historical Society. And so, not only that, but when my mother died in 1884, I think I was 40 years old, and I just took over running the business, as I said, or maybe I didn't say to you, but my stepsisters had all gotten married, had families of their own, and I won't give away what happened to my half-brother, Joseph Benzel, until you hear his story. But anyway, I just became a businesswoman. I never got married, but I did have lots of children in my life because my sisters had lots of children. And we had a good life here, and my business on the waterfront and the inn grew. I added another story to the building. It was a 3-story building with wraparound porches on top and bottom, and a lot of people came here during those years that we were the county seat because the court was doing business here, so lawyers came, clerks came, witnesses came. Everybody had to have a place to spend a night or two while they were here. And so other boarding houses also sprang up around town. You might see some of those remnants of those today. And so as I continued in my business with the boarding house, I also took up some businesses other places in town, mostly buying real estate and selling. It was another way that I was able to accumulate money. And we had a very good restaurant in my boarding house, and a lot of people like to come there to eat. And I was well known for my seafood menu here during those days. So people would come down from Wilmington to breathe salubrious breezes. Do you know what those are? We're famous for them here in this town. So we would sit out on our porch there and just enjoy being. And if you're not enjoying being, then you need to work on that. So anyway, I went on to continue to do other things here in town. And one of the things that we really needed here, because we are the largest natural harbor, the Cape Fear River that goes 200 miles up into the state here, is the only river that empties directly into the Atlantic Ocean in our state. All of the other rivers in our state empty into another body of water before they go out to the, like the Pamlico Sound or other sounds further up north. But down here in the south of the state, the Cape Fear River is the big river, and other rivers empty into the Cape Fear, but the Cape Fear continues right down here to where, just below my boarding house there, and then goes out to the Atlantic Ocean. It also meets the Elizabeth River, which you may not know about, that goes behind Oak Island. The river, the water that's behind Oak Island is not the Cape Fear River. I understand now it's an intercoastal waterway of some sort, but actually it's the Elizabeth River, and it meets the Cape Fear River right here in Southport. And that's why the currents are so rough here in Southport, and why you don't want to go swimming off of the city pier there. Because those two rivers come into being, and then with the Cape Fear being the stronger of the two rivers, it's the one that goes out to the ocean. It takes in the Elizabeth, and then the Cape Fear is the big one that pushes out to the Atlantic Ocean. All that to say, if ships are coming in off of the Atlantic Ocean, then why could they not be offloaded right here in our town and put on a railroad track and taken all over this country? Because after the Civil War, that was the thing we did. We built a way for you to get across this whole country from east to west by railroad. Well, that sounded like a good plan, so we started to work on it, and the reason we had to work on it was we didn't have no railroad here. Now, there was a railroad in Wilmington, but it needed a spur to come down here to where we are to make that happen, so we could offload ships here in this harbor so they wouldn't have to go up the river with a pilot. I understand they're still doing that. Anyway, up the river to Wilmington, which was working very hard to get the port established up there. So we worked and worked on that, and we had meeting after meeting, and one of the things that we did was talk about changing the name of the town, because Smithville sounded like a little podunk town where you go and fish or have a vacation, and that's what we were. So as we were sitting around, I was the only female member of the Chamber of Commerce. I think I told you that already. Anyway, we were sitting around the pot-bellied stove, and we came up, somebody came up with this idea. Let's change the name of the town to Southport. If we want to become the biggest port in the South, let's be Southport instead of Smithville. Well, it was late in the afternoon, and the men wanted to get home to supper, and they said, okay, let's do it. So we did it. And now that's not documented. And I failed to write that down when I got home. But I know in my head, even though it's as old as it is, that I was the one who came up with it. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. So anyway, we became Southport. 1887, we changed the name of everything legally in March of that year, and we became the town of Southport. And guess what? We got the railroad. 20 years too late. It was 1911 before they ever put a spur here, and the railroad was right out here on this street, on Rhett Street. That blue house over there was where the railroad station was, and finally we had it, but guess what? By that time, all the money and influence had gone up the river. You know, talk about going down the river. We went up the river to Wilmington, and today we still have the same situation that we had back in those days. They're going up there to offload. Our pilots are taking them up there, and that's just the way it is. One last little story about the railroad. I was very irked, miffed, and upset because they did not ask me to be a speaker that day when we had the big ceremony down here to bring the train in. Hadn't been here yet. It was sitting out there a little ways. That big locomotive was going to come roaring in. And I was really upset. I was upset about that. So I said, okay, I know what I'll do. I just took a little hike out the new railroad track, and nobody was looking. I climbed up on the flat car behind the locomotive, and I set myself down up there. And when that locomotive came roaring into town, and everybody was cheering and carrying on and having a wonderful time because we finally had the railroad here, there was Kate Stuart. Talk about your beauty queens today. But anyway, that's my story for now. If you want to stick around, you can hear it again or maybe something new. And if not, go see and hear somebody else. And thank you.